What is going on everyone, Nostalgia925 coming at you with yet another explaining Digimon attack episode. I recently proclaimed these sorts of videos a new series which is slightly different than the usual explaining Digivolution line video, where we mostly take a look at the biography and Digivolution line of particular Digimon. In the explaining Digimon attack series we are going to take a look at weapons, techniques and armor to know more about their capabilities and analyze how potentially devastating they may be. In this episode we are going to discuss how deadly Omnimon's grey swords are. Pay attention, I did write grey swords, it's in plural, meaning that we are going to take a look at all forms of Omnimon, or in the least most of them. This got me to my first question while doing my research: how many Omnimons are there? After jumping from one source to the other and with your help in the Nostalgia925 community page, I can say that there are many of them. Let me name those I've been able to find so far: OMEGAMON, Omnimon X, Omnimon Alter B and Alter S, Omnimon Zwart, and Omnimon Zward Defeat. Speaking of the first OMEGAMON, here is a comment of Ultra Lucario 91 which is very appropriate, and I quote: "How strong that blade is heavily depends on the OMEGAMON we're talking about, since Adventure OMEGAMON, Royal Knight OMEGAMON and V-Tamers OMEGAMON all are very different in power." You are absolutely right on this. In Digimon there is something called development. Those digital monsters adapt, evolve and change depending on the different media depictions. We most definitely need to take that into account. Other Omnimon forms include Omnimon Merciful Mode, an Omnimon with white wings resembling an angel and looks extremely devastating. In Digimon Cyber Sleuth there is yet another variation called Omnimon NX, who is a mini version of Omnimon. Sure, you may say that this one is not canon, but then again, what is canon and non-canon in the Digimon universe? I thought that I should at least mention it. However, for the sake of it, we are not going to discuss Omnimon NX in this video. You must know that later on I'm going to discuss all these variations in a similar video, that way you'll know more about the origins and biography of all these Omnimon forms. I admit that I'm wondering whether I should have started with the particular explaining episode, but hey, I'm guilty of running before learning how to walk. Now before we jump ahead, let me give a special shout out to my Patreon friends, Beast, Hibben Bob, Marine Solar and Nathan Jones, who are helping me to fund this channel. My biggest thank you. Hey you, yes you, have you ever considered subscribing? Just do it. Who else is going to give you the Digimon content I provide? Comparing Digimon to their mythological inspirations, comparing Digimon to real-world events, and on top of that, using your comments to give us a framework on which we can work on. That way, it isn't only me talking but all of you Digimon fans. Seriously, just join us and subscribe. I will first start the video with two comments that made me laugh so hard. Oh, and speaking of laughing, I may not show it that much in my Digimon videos, but I think that it's extremely important that you know that I'm someone who laughs way too much, and very loud by the way. Let me show you an embarrassing clip of me playing Rainbow Vegas, an episode which you can find on this channel.
Okay, I'm here.
That most of you are shocked by that awkward laughter, but hey, what can I say, I'm a very happy someone that enjoys cutting loose every now and then and live my life like there's no tomorrow. Laughing is the message. You all look more beautiful when you laugh anyway. Alright, first comment that made me laugh: the shadow in the mask wrote the following: Chuck Norris, Omegamon's sword is so sharp it doesn't even cut. Reality just runs away from it. Man, if you're going to refer to Chuck Norris, let me at least show you one of Chuck Norris' facts, one that actually blew my mind. So apparently Chuck Norris threw a grenade and killed 50 people with it, and only then the grenade exploded. Those facts really blew my mind, and apparently scientists are still discussing whether he killed 50 or 250 people with that same grenade before it exploded. So it's very impressive. Second and last comment that made Nostalgia925 laugh: Knurbar1 wrote the following: I don't think they are deadly. I mean, Omnimon can cut bread with it or make some oven pizza. That is probably why you show that Italian guy in the picture. Or maybe it is a reason for me to show you how I can cut these orange with this holy Nostalgia925 sword. I am betting you want to see that. Now. With those comments out of the way, let us now start by discussing the material which formed the sword. Just a Pixel believes that the sword itself may in fact be made of material that might even surpass Chrome DIGIZOID. Now that is saying something, you know. Chrome Digizoid is a metal in the digital world that can only be scratched by Chrome Digizoid. So we are talking about a metal that is extremely durable. A resource that, in the hands of humans, might maybe cause a world war, which I by the way explained in the Digi News series. Make sure to check it out. I only scratched the surface in that episode, but we'll go deeper. Andres Marrero said that the sword is most certainly a peerless blade that is extremely durable, sharp and highly reflective. I like that Andres wrote the concept extremely because it means that the sword is extremely durable but not invincible in the sense that it cannot be broken. And in this video, I myself, along with your comments, will hint to moments where the sword was in fact broken. Koro Seye wrote the following: while the grey sword is extremely powerful, it is not unbeatable as seen in the DIABLOMON Strikes Back movie where ImperialDramon had to go paladin mode. Ah yes, the DIABLOMON Strikes Back movie, a nice point of reference. I'm certainly going to take that into account. Marine Solar, one who supports the channel on Patreon, indirectly replied to Koro Seye's comment by writing the following: if I recall correctly, it is the Omni Sword that makes ImperialDramon evolve to this powerful being. So this sword clearly have immense power if it can help a Mega Digimon evolve further to become even stronger. Well, I would say yes and no, Marine. You see, it was in fact Omnimon that transformed itself into a blade, which was taken by ImperialDramon, enabling it to reach the paladin form. This would mean two things. ImperialDramon only ever became so powerful because of Omnimon's help, and very important, ImperialDramon's sword is not the grey sword. I did notice that many of you reflected on the battle between Omnimon and DIABLOMON. You referred to the fact that the grey sword reflected 1,000 lasers coming from all angles when Omnimon fought DIABLOMON. It is certainly a very impressive feat, but I believe that we are forgetting a very important aspect which ShakeGB1 pointed out. While most OMEGAMON swords don't have much known about them, but the base OMEGAMON's grey sword has the most examples, so from what I know, it isn't that deadly, I would say. Even though it reflected all of the DIABLOMON clone's attacks, according to Armageddon's profile, DIABLOMON had the ability to make many copies of itself, but they were characterized by having lesser abilities than the original possessed. Meaning that even though it seemed to reflect many Mega level Digimon attacks, the attack powers were probably only as strong as ultimate or even champion attacks. It was on the other hand capable to defend against Ordinamon's attack, but not to reflect it back at her. So the sword is capable to defend against a super ultimate attack, just not to reflect. A very nice comment, ShakeGB1. You did mention two Digimon, so for the newcomers let me show which Digimon were mentioned. Armageddon is a Digimon that is quite linked to those DIABLOMON clones. You must know that DIABLOMON on its own is already extremely powerful as a Mega level Digimon, but if you consider Armageddon's background, you'll come to understand that we're talking about a Digimon that is even more powerful than DIABLOMON. Armageddon defeated Omnimon, and on top of that, Omnimon used his grey sword and nothing happened. It was insufficient to stop the beast. It took Omnimon to transform into a sword and be utilized by ImperialDramon to kill Armageddon. And again, you need to know that the sword ImperialDramon is wielding is not a grey sword. It is using the Omni Sword, also called the Omega Blade. We should discuss the Omega Blade in another video and maybe compare it to the strongest grey sword we'll find in this Digimon research. Ordinamon is another Digimon that was mentioned by ShakeGB1. I talked about Ordinamon in the Explaining Mekomon Digivolution Line video. What you have to know about Ordinamon is that this Digimon theoretically is among the most powerful Fallen Angel type Digimon, because it is the fusion of two Mega level Fallen Angel Digimon. It is the fusion of WARGREYMON, a Digimon that had the role of observer in the Digimon Angelic universe, and Ophanimon Faldan Mode, which is another fallen angel, and to my knowledge the strongest Ophanimon, as it suppressed its own emotions. A warrior with no emotions is basically the perfect weapon. And both these strong Mega level fallen angel Digimon fused in order to become Ordinamon. Now this might shock you, my good friends, but based on the Digimon 3 series, Ordinamon is way more powerful than Omnimon. In fact, it took the entire team of Digidestined with their partner Digimon evolving to their Mega form to face Ordinamon, and even that was not enough. The only way to make significant damage to the point of destroying Ordinamon was by combining the powers of the Digidestined, their Mega level partner Digimon, into one being called Omnimon Merciful Mode. Only then the Grey Sword was capable of destroying Ordinamon, and just to let you know, I have a lot of thoughts against that ending, and I will develop part of my opinion in this video. We cannot forget that Omnimon base form has different appearances, and in each of those appearances the Grey Sword's feats goes from less impressive to very impressive. Here's a comment of Digital Silver 101. If I remember correctly, in the X Evolution movie, the Omnimon Royal Knight version, just swinging his Grey Sword caused a wave of destruction that shook up the surrounding area and killed Omnimon X. Also, his sword went right through Dukemon's armor. Digital Silver, you remember correctly, just a swing of Omnimon in the X Evolution movie was enough to kill Omnimon X, which is the enhanced version of Omnimon. A swing of the sword from a huge distance was not only enough to kill Omnimon X, but also change the surrounding landscape, basically erasing everything that is green and alive. On top of that, the sword pierced Dukemon's body like it was nothing, and pay attention, Dukemon is clad in holy armor refined and constructed from 99.9% pure chrome Digizoid. This alone is enough to convince me that the Omnimon of Adventure and the Omnimon of the X Evolution movie are not the same and are probably on complete different levels. And the Grey Sword also appears to change from one appearance to the other. Oh, and before I forget, there's one thing I need to say. You see, Omnimon Sword, there is a text written on it. The digicode on the Grey Sword reads All Delete. It is the name of one of the most powerful attacks in the Digimon franchise, but one that Omnimon base form could not use even in the X Evolution movie. At least not until after it acquired the X antibody and gained that enhanced form called Omnimon X. Only then was it able to use All Delete, which enables it to invoke an ability that erases anything that it comes in contact with. Traits were the following. I imagine base Omnimon can cut through many things, but I'm willing to bet something like Gallantmon's shield is not one of those things. Good that you pointed out Gallantmon's shield. By the way, I did talk about Gallantmon in the Explaining Guilmon Digivolution line video, make sure to check it out, especially if you are in need of some more information. I myself also believe that Gallantmon's shield should be powerful enough to resist Omnimon's sword. We don't know of what mineral it is made, so I'm guessing that there are other powerful minerals, or at least other ways of making either your weapon or armor very strong as Chrome Digizoid, or maybe stronger. Gallantmon's shield, also called Aegis, is powerful enough to knock over a D Reaper with one shield bash, which is very impressive already. A D Reaper is a very powerful digital life form inhabiting the digital world, but is not a Digimon. This is a hint that the Digimon universe is not only the habitat of Digimon, but to other creatures as well. Try to imagine what can be found in the depths of the digital world. It's almost as if there is no end to threats or mysteries in that universe. But look, I'm once more getting ahead of myself. We'll discuss these other life forms in another video. Traits continue with the following. If I am correct, however, Omnimon X would probably get the job done on most things, considering that the Grey Sword contains the All Delete attack. Logically, the X version would be able to cut through more anyway. I'm willing to bet the Black Omnimon and its defeated form are probably around the same level or lower as the base Omnimon. I don't think X could cut through anything, but I do believe most other Royal Knights and many Digimon wouldn't fare too well against the blade. If we are talking about the sword in Pergamon Paladin mode uses to digivolve, that one could be specifically dangerous. Containing such a powerful Digimon in a sword could lead to an extremely powerful weapon. Well, yes, absolutely. The Omega Sword is the power of Omnimon, and Omnimon is a fusion of two Megas, Garurumon and WARGREYMON, so obviously that sword would be very powerful. But I'm afraid we'll have to discuss its properties in another video, even though it is very interesting. But if we don't make sure to work on the Grey Sword framework, you all know that I can maybe talk for hours, simply because of my passion for Digimon. But Trace, I must say I'm very happy that you brought up the other forms of Omnimon. We are going to check their swords now, but I'd like to give you a conclusion about Omnimon and Omnimon X's Grey Swords. Clearly, depending on which media depiction we are talking about, there are about 2 to even 3 different base Omnimons. If you're talking about the one of Adventure, then the Grey Sword is most certainly strong, but considering that it could not kill Armageddon, and considering that the Diaboromon lasers came from weaker versions of Diaboromon, I think that it is clear that this version of the sword is not invincible and certainly not the most powerful Grey Sword. On top of that, it cannot use the All Delete attack despite the fact that the sword has a digicode written on it with the very name of that attack. It is clear that Omnimon's Grey Sword in the X Evolution movie is way more powerful by a large margin, being able to pierce through Gallantmon's 99.9 chrome DIGIZOID armor and killing an enhanced Metal Garurumon X with just a swing of the sword and from a huge distance. On top of that, a swing of the grey sword was able to change the entire landscape, so it's very powerful. I would even say that this grey sword is probably among the more powerful grey swords, but again, it is not invincible, as this one does not have the old delete attack, and I have a good comment of Alan Tang here that pointed out to some important moments where Omnimon's sword actually failed it. Omnimon's sword is powerful, but there is clearly a limit to its power because he has lost multiple times. In Digimon V Tamer, his sword was broken by Arcadiamon Mega level. He was defeated by OMEGAMON in the Digimon Adventure 2 Revenge of the Aboromon movie. He lost to DEADLY in the X Evolution movie and was outclassed by Alphamon, where one of Omnimon's sword strikes barely did any damage to DEADLY, while Alphamon one-shots it with his Digitalize of Soul. Nice work for pointing out these important moments. Let me say a thing about Arcadiamon. You have to know that this one is considered by some to be the greatest threat to the digital world, or potentially the greatest threat in the digital world. You have to know that these Royal Knights are powerful, but they are not the most powerful life forms in the digital universe. But what we can take from it is that when we consider the fact that Omnimon attacked Arcadiamon and its sword broke, that means, in the very least, that Omnimon's arm strength is certainly more powerful than what the sword can handle, meaning that the sword is certainly not invincible because when exposed to a sufficient amount of force, it will high probably break. Obviously a lot changes once Omnimon acquires the old delete attack. With that technique, I would say that the amount of force behind the sword isn't really that important anymore. That attack was capable of resetting Yggdrasil, who is the ruler of one server of the digital world. That sword needs to be a very serious sword in order to do that. Oh, and guys, please consider the idea that if Yggdrasil is the ruler of one server, and that there's possibly a multiplicity of servers, it may be that Yggdrasil is not even the strongest of rulers, and that there may be others out there who are on complete different levels in comparison to Yggdrasil. The grey sword of Omnimon X is certainly among the more powerful version of the sword, or at least stronger than the different versions of base Omnimon's grey swords. But now, what about the other versions of Omnimon? Spark Gold wrote the following: does the OMEGAMON Alter S Garurumon sword count as a grey sword? Well, unfortunately the Garuru sword is not a grey sword. It also works different, so unfortunately it does not count. Same story with the enhanced OMEGAMON Alter B version. The Digimon does look amazing, but we're still talking about the Garuru sword, also known as the Supreme Sword. Because it isn't a grey sword, I'm afraid that we cannot discuss it in this video. However, we can discuss Omnimon Zwart, as this one does have a grey sword. And by the way, a very important information, from what is told, Omnimon Zwart is basically an enhanced version of Omnimon due to the secretion of Black Digitron being mixed while in the process of fusion. Black Digitron temporarily increase the power of a Digimon, however in exchange for lower overall speed. Obviously this means that the Digimon can be extremely powerful, but if your speed is lacking, then there's not much you can do, even if you have a sword as powerful as the grey sword. In the case of Omnimon Zwart, its grey sword was enhanced by Black Digitron. I think that we can safely assume that this sword should at least be stronger than the different base versions of Omnimon. Heck, its sword even says Termination, instead of the old delete written on the grey sword of Omnimon and Omnimon X. However, I have to say, unfortunately, there isn't really enough data about the sword's capabilities to make any sort of assumptions. But I admit that Omnimon Zwart did leave me with a great many questions. For example, what attack would it gain if it were to have an X antibody? Would its sword be stronger than Omnimon X's grey sword? Would it have an attack called Termination, as is written on its sword? And if so, would there be a difference between the old delete attack? We can only guess and make theories, unfortunately. If you guys have an answer to it or a theory about it, please make sure to write it down in the comment section. That way, when I'm going to make a specific video about this one, we are going to use all these theories and discuss them. Now, if Omnimon Zwart is already a mystery, then Omnimon Zward Defeat is even more mysterious. Pay attention, Omnimon Zward Defeat is not the next form of Omnimon Zwart. In fact, we can still question what form it is, because the truth is, Omnimon Zwart was infected with a virus by someone. I'm guessing that the virus was for experimental purposes, but it looks like it did a lot of damage to Omnimon Zwart, to a point that it even looks as if it's decaying. Its Grey Sword is broken, even if we don't know how or when, but it can be replaced by a red laser. But we don't really know what that red laser can do. That is why I can't even imagine the possibilities. This unfortunately leaves me to conclude that the most powerful Grey Sword is either the one of Omnimon X or Omnimon Merciful Mode, just because we have more information about them. And to me personally, the more powerful sword among the two would be Omnimon X's Grey Sword. This might shock a lot of you, but let me explain. You see, Omnimon Merciful Mode on its own in my eyes is absolutely more powerful than Omnimon X, at least when it comes to raw power and durability, I guess, because, well, it gained the power of 6 other Mega level Digimon. That is why it ended up changing modes. Oh, and by the way, for those thinking that OMEGAMON Merciful Mode is the fusion of all 8 Digimon, even if it might be written like that in the sources, I personally think that it is wrong, unless I'm wrong myself. I believe that the fusion of those 8 Digimon would not have the appearance of an Omnimon in white and blue colors. I would rather believe that these other Digimon simply transferred their power to Omnimon, and that way it was enhanced. They transferred their power to Omnimon, but they did not necessarily transfer it to the sword. In fact, they did not even combine their powers to become one sword like Omnimon did to become the Omega Sword. Because of it, I guess that it might be that the Grey Sword of Omnimon Merciful Mode has maybe some enhanced abilities, because in the end when it fought Ordinamon, I can only remember this energy that came out of the sword that could slice through Ordinamon. That must be one powerful ability of the sword, but as far as I know, it doesn't seem like the sword can use, for example, the All Delete attack. In fact, the sword doesn't even have the digicode All Delete written on it, and those digicodes usually are hinting towards a possible hidden potential of a Digimon or an attack. The point I'm trying to make, it might sound as if I'm stretching things too much, but sometimes you need to think through. I believe that when Omnimon Merciful Mode wins a battle, it won't necessarily be the Grey Sword that will make it win, but rather the fact that it is a combination of the power of 8 very powerful Mega level Digimon. The only thing its sword showed was the energy that was used to cut down Ordinamon, but then again, you have Digimon that can resist energy weapons despite their bodies being made of matter, or it might even be that their bodies are covered in armor that can resist energy attacks. So based on my analysis, Ordinamon should have resisted Omnimon Merciful Mode's attack, considering that it did receive energy blast from many other Mega level Digimon and it was still fighting strong. The only reason why I believe that the sword Omnimon Merciful Mode was using did damage is not really because of logic, but I'm guessing because of the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. You can let those Digimon fight separately as we saw in the movie, or you can make them combine into one and make one very powerful individual. In that case, yes, Ordinamon, who has the power of 2 Digimon, Mekomon and Ophanimon Fall Down Mode, was clearly inferior in number. Now let us spice things up. You guys mentioned Arcadiamon, right? We know that Omnimon had its sword broken in a fight against Arcadiamon. Arcadiamon, a Digimon who was able to hold its own against Omnimon and Rosemon, Regularmon, which I discussed in the Explaining Leomon Digivolution Line video, and, to finish, Dominimon, which is Patamon's Mega level Digimon that I haven't even discussed in the Explaining Patamon Digivolution Line video. Please remind me of doing that. All 4 of those Digimon are very powerful Mega level Digimon, and yet they were all out of Arcadiamon's league. But I would say no wonder, as Arcadiamon is a digital monster whose nature is to evolve by absorbing its opponent's data. With that logic, if you consider all Digimon that Arcadiamon has absorbed and use that idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, what guarantees that Omnimon Merciful Mode is going to do much against Arcadiamon simply because it fused with a couple of other Megas and has a sword who, as far as we know, can only be used for distanced energy attacks? Arcadiamon already absorbed the data of plenty of Digimon. This one is high probably a fusion that surpasses Omnimon Merciful Mode by far. Omnimon Merciful Mode is just a combination of 8 Mega level Digimon. However, when you consider the quantity of Digimon that were used to form Arcadiamon, then clearly Arcadiamon would surpass Omnimon Merciful Mode by a large margin. And by the way, Arcadiamon is just one example of those kind of fused Digimon. So try to be honest with each other. Can we say that Omnimon's Grey Sword with its energy blast is going to do much? We don't really know, but I think that you'd have more chances to defeat such a monster if your sword has the all delete attack, and even that attack to me is still up to debate on whether it's really going to be able to defeat Arcadiamon. You know why? Well, maybe it is best that we leave that for another video. I really hope you learned some extra about the Grey Sword. I know I had to jump left and right, but it's difficult when you have so many comments and you're trying to include them all, and then again Digimon is also not always that consistent, so I had to figure my way through it. I hope you guys at least enjoyed it. I know I had a lot of fun working on this video and going through your comments. I hope that this video only shows how deep Digimon can go, how much we can think about it, how far it goes. I like the idea, by the way, that there is not really a definite strongest Digimon, but that it can vary from circumstances or weapons that are being used. Look, to give you a small example, I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, but through the years I learned that in the end it is Goku that is somehow going to win because, well, he is the hero and ultimately he'll get a new form to defeat the stronger opponents. Omnimon has had many losses despite being what we can consider a main protagonist or a potential main protagonist, and it is in fact those losses that to me makes me like Omnimon and love Digimon even more. Even heroes can fail every now and then, and that is a lesson that needs to be learned, and that is a lesson that Digimon is teaching me, and I hope it is doing the same to you. By the way, if you guys are new and you have watched this video and enjoyed it, please make sure to subscribe and drop a comment and a like. That way I know that those hours I spent investigating the Digimon universe and those hours I spent just reading and thinking about your comment is in the very least appreciated by the world. If you can and want to, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon, and never forget that this channel works with playlists. All playlists are always updated, that way it is easier for you to catch up on the newest and the oldest videos.